Back in the 1950s, when the old cron was social media, a journalist with the pen name of Chelmsfordian wrote an article entitled 50 Years On, in which he describes how his grandfather dismissed Marconi as a trickster, and after sending a reporter to interview the future Wizard of the Wireless, dismissed his prediction of bridging the Atlantic as a fantasy. But the writer would later stand in a field at Boreham and hear the great Dame Nellie Melba singing from Marconi's New Street factory. In his column he wrote, "Even in my early days people never boasted about being Chelmsford folk. I don't know why, perhaps it was because it was Chelmsford before Marconi. Soon after there rose up the twin masts of what the guidebook described as the great wonder world of wireless. For miles in this level county," it went on, "the high Marconi masts draw the traveller's eye, their warning lights twinkling in the night sky 450 feet high above the town. Chelmsfordians were very proud of those masts and sorrowed when they were removed. But even before the twin masts and the great works built on the ground where once the county sports were held, I can remember the earliest Marconi building. It was nothing very much, simply a disused mill in Mulbay Road. My grandfather used to walk by every day, and he was no believer in the future of the young Mr. Marconi." That was a curious phenomenon about the late Victorians and the Edwardians. They were so completely unexcited about anything. My grandfather was told that this young fellow Marconi was at work in the old mill, and one day he sent a reporter to interview him. The reporter found Marconi himself, and the future Wizard of the Wireless told him that one day his system of sending messages would bridge the Atlantic. My grandfather tossed the interview aside impatiently, saying, "Oh, another trickster trying to get money out of the public." Yet, a year or two later, Marconi proved that he could do it, and time itself could hardly keep pace after that with the progress of wireless. Although Marconi did not pose with his women workers, they were just as vital as the men. And it would be a woman's voice that soon would be heard across the world, singing from the world's first purpose-built wireless factory. After the First World War, I was amongst guests at a luncheon given by Marconi's to introduce broadcasting. After the lunch, which was, let me say, well worth the occasion, the guests were carried by motor bus to a field near Boreham, and there, in relays, we listened through headphone receivers to a woman's voice singing Home Sweet Home. It was Dame Nellie Melba, singing from Marconi's in Chelmsford. And very wonderful, it seemed. When Dame Nellie Melba did eventually sing from the New Street Works, instead of splashing the history-making performance from Marconi's Chelmsford factory on June the 15th, 1920 across its front page, the Chronicle's editor hid it away on page 7. And yet, the famous Australian soprano had just given the world's first broadcast of a scheduled musical event in his patch. The answer is quite simply money. Dame Nellie was financially sponsored by Lord Northcliffe, whose top-selling Daily Mail made certain that no small-town newspaper would steal its thunder. So Marconi issued a simple statement outlining the bare details of her visit and topped by a simple headline. It's curious that Lord Northcliffe bought the Essex Chronicle in the mid-1960s. And so to whom did the pen name the Chelmsfordian belong? It's believed it must have been Essex Chronicle editor Reggie Thompson, who was parachuted in from Fleet Street into the High Street HQ to take over the helm after the tragic death of its proprietor editor and father, many times Mayor, John Ogleford Thompson. He and his wife were killed when a lone German bomber, which had just attacked the town's industrial heart, fled below the radar and loosed its remaining payload on their home in New London Road, close to where now stands Christchurch. I don't know the Christian name of Reggie's grandfather, but he certainly had to eat his words with regards to the future success of the great Giulio Marconi.